You want Lagavulin or Sheldig?
Whichever.
Your call.
Lagavulin. I think this first drink is us surviving 2020, and then this is the milestones to come in 2021. Good morning, and welcome to episode 18 of the Whiskey Podcast. I would like to take a moment to toast to the shortest dry January ever. Because goddamn. But also, another toast to surviving 2020.
It's a lot of toast.
Yeah, gonna have a bread shortage soon.
Let them eat cake.
Well, I'm trying to think, what would be the liquor equivalent of cake?
Let them drink cake?
Yeah, I mean, there's cake shots.
There you go.
Yeah, it's just too sugary. And I'm looking after my figure, Round is a shape, after all. So, where are we? Well, this is our first episode of 2021. Some things and changes we're looking at making in the new year. One, after a lot of consideration, we've decided that, rather than get involved in all those political things that are going on, we're going to really focus on what it's like being dads. And if those political things directly affect us and being dads, then they may come in. But otherwise, it's just going to be stories of surviving, such as getting hit in the nuts repetitively by all three children. And other fun and exciting things.
Yeah, it is very easy to go consume politics elsewhere. We don't need to rehash everything that you are getting bombarded with, so.
Right. Which reminds me, speaking of hash.
Hash?
Yeah, because you were rehashing things. We need, a good hangover breakfast, because it's really, 10:30.
Oh, my gosh,
10:45.
yeah.
And we're already starting to drink, so. Yay, day drunk.
And meanwhile, my wife is just behind the door here playing video games.
Mm-hmm. Because my wife is watching your oldest. Their mother is watching the middle one.
Charlotte's
Charlotte's
sitting on the
now?
couch with mommy.
Aw, we're making gamers out of them yet. Yeah. So your oldest has started playing Ark with me. Mm-hmm. And so far her responses are, "Oh, Uncle Wookie, they just want to give you a hug. They're nice dinosaurs." They ate you. And... we have to name all of it. She's apparently a feminist because when we had the mantis, and I told her that the mantis was a female, she insisted that we call her Sheetus instead of mantis.
Right.
So, already picking up those liberal vibes from her mommy teachers, or, teacher mommies, whichever way we want to go, from there.
It's not a mantis, it's a womantis.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
She's also gotten very protective of everything.
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh. She looks after her young cousin. She looks after her sister. She's been looking after you. Mommy hits you, and she starts, standing up for you.
At least someone does.
Yeah. That's going to go away very quickly, so cherish it while you can.
Yeah, and she's very protective over her cats.
Speaking of cats, your youngest currently has the badass scar going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she took one to the face because she got in between a cat and his food, and he wasn't having it, so he climbed right up her, and very fortunate that she didn't lose an eye.
Yeah.
So it came incredibly close, and again.
But it turns out your daughter is actually like Deadpool or Wolverine or something.
Oh yeah, she's almost 100% healed already, and that was yesterday.
But I mean, that scar going right down the right eye here. That'd be a cool scar. She shows up to preschool. "What happened to your eye?" "Well, let me tell you. Back on the streets, 2077.
All right, she could look at her classmates like my oldest does and goes, "That fucking cat."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the other new one that I'm contending with is my oldest daughter's appreciation for the word fuck and fucking and how she uses it properly.
She does use it exceptionally well. Mm-hmm. And it's not just she heard a word and repeated it. Like, she knows the nuance. She knows how to apply it in real time. And so far, at least, has only done it in very specific locations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, mostly in houses or in front of houses. Mm-hmm. As she's hanging from the car door and says, "We are not fucking going home." Mm-hmm. Turn this fucking car around the entire way home.
Yeah.
She's 3.5.
Yeah, almost 4.
Almost 4.
Yeah, we're getting there.
I'm in trouble.
Yes, you are. I love her manipulation games, too. Yesterday, she got pissed at our wives because she had a little bit of an accident, and when they tried to wipe her butt, she apparently didn't want that. So she locked
leave that
herself,
shit alone, yeah.
Yeah. So she locked herself in my bedroom, Auntie Bear's bedroom, because I don't own anything in the house, according to her. It's also the truth, but locked herself in our room and insisted on this class, world act of, "Nobody loves me anymore. How could they? I told them I didn't want to and they disrespected me." I walk in without her noticing, and she's got herself strapped into the toddler swing and just having the time of her life, and I walk in and immediately she goes from
right. Get that girl an Oscar already,
right?
And the middle one's already picking up on it, so it's a matter of time.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm happy to see that your youngest and the 11-month-old are starting to get along. Except, the problem right now is their interactions are your youngest starts screeching, mm-hmm. and the 11-month-old starts crying as a result.
Right. Well, I mean, can you blame her? That is one of the most ear-piercing screeches, and she knows it.
Oh, yeah.
She'll ramp it up until she hits that note and has that sustain.
Uh-huh. But isn't family swell? So meanwhile, speaking of the 11-month-old, who will be...
You're coming up on 1 year, right?
Yeah. 1 year on the 29th.
Yeah.
And I can't... so that means a year, more or less, that we've been dealing with COVID. Mm-hmm. A year since everything kind of got turned upside down. And...
But you'd like to take a minute, just sit right there.
Mm-hmm. And tell you how I became the prince of a town called Porter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. License plate said fresh. And there were dice in the mirror. DMCA.
Can't afford. Hold on.
And that was the graceful fleeing of Nate Fu as he soared through the air looking for, I'm guessing, a lighter. It is, almost 11? Yeah, it's not even 11 a.m. yet. We could hold off on the cigar.
Yeah, but already towards the end of it, it's going to go bad now.
Think of those poor, unintoxicated children on the streets. Those poor, poor children.
Yeah, so we got your youngest turning a year, my oldest turning 4 in just a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. The youngest turning 3 right after my wedding anniversary.
I came to the stark realization the other day that I'm a year away from kindergarten.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, since my wife is a kindergarten teacher, your daughter's already been assessed and is already beyond the standard kindergartner level.
That's going to go over like a Led Zeppelin.
Mm-hmm.
She is. We already have one. We already have one member of the family that is exceptionally bright, and they're now just starting to feel the repercussions of it. I guess they're getting him assessed now to make sure he doesn't need to go on, an IEP or...
Yeah. I mean, he's also got some anxiety issues beyond all that. But, that one's sister is the one that, I can't wait till her teachers get a load of her.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities already coming up here, and it's just like, well, we're in for it. Yeah, it's going to be
Well, I mean, here's
a tough
the
road
question. Well, first off, before we get too deep into anything, what the hell are we drinking?
Well, right now we're drinking the Lagavulin 16 that my wife bought me for my birthday. So
we'll use that to celebrate survival of 2020.
6 months, and I still haven't finished the bottle, and that in and of itself is an achievement.
Well, that's because it's been here and we kind of locked it away.
Right.
Yeah. You see, we've got this whole thing that we forget about things if they're not directly in front of us. Mind you, we've gone through, 3 handles of Jack?
That was just December.
Yeah, it's just December.
3 handles of Jack, a couple of handles of Jameson.
3 rums.
Countless Suntories. Yeah. That's why we wanted to do a dry January.
Oops. I'd pour some out, but this is too good.
Right? Oh, man.
Yeah, it's been a week.
It's been a year.
Just this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The running meme on all the socials is I'm done with my 7-day trial of 2021. I think I don't want to subscribe.
I like the you fooled me well, December 37th,
right?
2020. Well, no, just looking at things in perspective, I went back and listened to a little bit of episode 1 and some of the shit our kids were getting into at that time. Mm-hmm. And now a year later, and they're still getting into a lot of the same shit, but, they're a hell of a lot more intelligent about it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's terrifying. My daughter is crawling. We call her Peggy Sue because she does this, one-legged peg walk, where one leg is tucked underneath her,
and then
weirdest
she pushes
off
thing.
with the other.
Yeah.
And really, she's lazy. She's in a sitting position and doesn't want to fully go over and use all of her legs because she can crawl normally just fine. But so she does this thing and does a little slide with it as well, and quickest way from point A to point B. But then she stands up. She says up when she wants someone to lift her up. She has names for Grammy, Mommy, Daddy. Sounds for other things. She's learning some basic sign language. Mm-hmm. Hasn't learned the bird yet. That flies a lot off around the house, but hasn't quite gotten that yet. She waves. She loves watching Twitch streams, which I guess is good. Big fan of Danfinity, just like the rest of the family. So, Dana, you've got another one. It's the giggle.
Bad influence on our kids.
Mm-hmm. Balls.
Right.
Yeah. She's insane. She's eating a ton. She's going through something right now. Her sleep has not been easy for her.
Right.
Where she wakes up screeching and then, can't go back to sleep for a little bit.
Yeah, and that could be everything from growing pains to another tooth to...
Well, a tooth first. I mean,
right.
They're all there on the edge. So, she's done everything else like clockwork. Someone says 4 to 6 months something will happen. 5 months,
right.
On the day she does it. And I just, yeah. No, she's been the best thing to happen in 2020, but also the scariest thing to have ever happened in my life.
That's absolutely fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you just got that Apple TV device. We had to upgrade the internet around here just because for the audience here,
and also for the fact that Nate Fu and his family are over enough that we were kind of having more than 7 devices, which is the average that they recommend. The house, I think I counted it when Nate Fu and his family are over and they're potentially doing some work. We'll have 26 devices connected at once. Mm-hmm. Between phones, tablets, computers,
smart TVs, refrigerators, coffee makers.
No, that's smart. I keep that as dumb as possible, or else the revolution will be swift. And I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords.
But yeah, so we upgraded that, and with it came an Apple TV, and I guess when your wife attached it to her account, it created the collage for the screensaver.
So we've got the photo album of photos from the last year.
At least, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, most of those are actually just the last 6 months.
I know, and it's best show on TV right now. I'm just sitting here watching this going, this is a screensaver.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, yeah, you can watch all of them just go from these little balls of poo and screaming
to larger balls of poo and screaming.
Right. Different poop, different screams.
Mm-hmm. But still, somehow in our hearts. You know, a boss told me at one point when we were, just talking about having a kid, that the conversation around shit changes drastically when you have a child. Because if they're pooping on, regularly and on standard schedule, that means they're healthy.
Right.
So it has a whole new meaning. Like, oh, she's regular. That's so sweet. Aww. She's making pellets that look like mustard. That's beautiful. Our baby girl's growing up.
All right, we're out of black tar stage.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the whatever, like, moose shit that comes out of my daughter.
Yeah, well, that's pure, solidified evil.
God.
Both of them. Like, your youngest yesterday walked in, wouldn't take a nap for you two, but I was able to get her to sleep. But let me tell you, she was rancid smelling. I'm like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm dropping her off, and I am leaving, for 3 rooms over. And, just putting a candle under my nose just to get the smell out. Because it was bad.
Oh, you gotta light a match on her. Like, set her on fire.
No, they'd actually enjoy that.
Do we have an escapee?
Not yet. Thankfully.
Okay. So where were we? Oh, right. Toxic shit.
Mm-hmm. We don't mean the internet. We mean true biohazard conditions.
Yes. So yeah, kids growing up, saying bad words, doing bad things.
Well, no, on top of it, I've been, I injured my back right at the end of last year because, I'm old and fat. And...
Old.
Yeah, get off my lawn, Grandpa. But your 2 kids insist on roughhousing with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, they're at the point where I can't just, curl them with one arm while, holding myself up anymore. So it's, your oldest likes to perch like she's a gargoyle on my armchair or on my shoulder, which, she's really a bit too large to do. The youngest just wants me to walk around holding her upside down.
Right.
And will climb up me to get to that point, and then she scales you.
From the shoulders, I put her up on my shoulder, and next thing I know, she swung the leg over, and she's just slithering down me like a fireman pole. I'm going, where the hell did this come from?
Right. Meanwhile, the one thing about kids that I love is, some kids will just fall from like 30 stories up, land on the ground, bounce, and then, I'm okay, and keep going and running off and doing their thing. Other kids will, look at you, you're not paying attention to them, and smack their head on the floor and say, oh, I hurt myself.
My head.
And you have both. Yep. You have both.
Yep.
So.
There's not enough scotch in the world.
Well, finish yours so we can start the next one.
Okay. Twist my arm.
Yeah. There are sober kids out there. And I am not drunk enough to deal with them. Yeah, speaking of, your wife apparently is introducing my daughter to coffee and, Coca-Cola. Thanks for that. Your kid's already addicted. I don't need my kid addicted too.
Well, go put a boot in her ass.
Oh, no, I'm watching her, and I'm yelling at her. See, she's right there right now. I'm giving her, judgmental looks.
Believe me, I tried, and, I don't have the luxury of being home.
Right.
I go to work, I come home, and, here's an overly caffeinated 3-year-old. Because, and it's not, here, have this. It's, if
she steals it.
Yeah, if you turn your back on her for a second, she will steal your drink.
Uh-huh. Yeah, just this morning, my wife stood up to go, check on the 11-month-old, came back, and the your almost 3-year-old was
Almost 3?
chugging the Coke that she just put down. And I don't mean like just sip, whatever. I mean like chug.
Yep.
Like half a can in the space of, standing up.
Yeah, we actually had to start getting her decaf from Starbucks because she would steal our coffee if we weren't paying attention, and she loves the taste of coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to talk about that, and, one of my almost 3-year-old's favorite words and favorite drinks is Keela.
Uh-huh.
Because, yeah.
Yeah, because Auntie.
Yeah.
So, now that Nate Foo's finishing his birthday drink, we're going to switch over to the Shield Egg that my wife bought me, the 21-year-old.
You want a couple of cubes?
Yeah, sure, why not?
I'll be right back.
So, if you remember from the Father's Day episode, Mama Bear got this for me, and we can each have a drink when we reach an important milestone with my daughter. Well, so far she is crawling. She sleeps through the night in her own bed. She says words. She's actually said Dada before and, knows the meaning of it. Although Dada also, comes when she's pissed and she's like, Dada, come save me. Which is, a nice place to be rather than, Dada, you asshole. Which is what her mom says. What else is there? She's almost walking at this point. She was almost walking just as much as she was almost crawling. She pulls herself up on things and then walks around. And she could be walking at this point, if she just forgot to hold on. Thank you. So, to that, ladies and gentlemen, I say to milestones and to 2021, cheers.
It's only up from here, right?
So what I'm hearing is I'm not actually going to edit video for this one. I think we're just going to do a headliner with it. That's okay, we're streaming to no one, so.
Gotta start somewhere.
Alright. Now this is really us being able to utilize the tool to do the job better.
That's some good shit.
And we're getting wasted before noon. So speaking of wasted, let's talk jobs.
No.
So yeah, I've started with my company. I've been with them. Next week will be officially 2 months. Loving every bit of it, honestly. This has been the transition I've been hoping for like years at this point. And it's a company that just seems to respect us, which is great. My boss, outwards of just trying to be as supportive of everyone as possible, is also a true gamer, which I love. So eventually, once I can actually afford it, I'm going to be running a new build past him for PC and figure out where things go. But I'm looking forward to negotiating what the full time next steps might be with them. So we'll see about that.
Yeah.
How about you? What's 2021 looking like for you, job prospect-wise?
Well, we kind of promised not to get too political with it, but unfortunately,
Yeah.
COVID strikes its ugly head again, and over the shutdown between Christmas and New Year's, we had an outbreak at my job, and one of my coworkers passed away. Caught it on... we had a bunch of employees come in, some were symptomatic. This was on Wednesday after Christmas, and he passed away on Friday.
Shit.
Like, that quick. And granted, he was a very heavy set, so he already had the complications, so you give him a respiratory issue.
Yeah.
So because of that now, we are mandatory testing. We're actually taking the ready tests. I went back in on Wednesday. We lost 2 days of work unpaid. Went in for my ready test on Wednesday. Was cleared so that I could work Thursday, Friday. On Monday, I'm going in for another ready test. If I'm clear, then I'm cleared to work till Wednesday. Then on Wednesday, I take another ready test to make sure that I'm cleared to work for Thursday and Friday. But Friday is my first furlough work day that I get unpaid. So Monday, I go in at 7:30. Tuesday, I go in at 5. Wednesday, I go in at 7:30, maybe 6, because I haven't figured out what that looks like. Then Thursday, I go in at 5 again, and then Friday, I'm off and I'm not paid. To start this all over again on Monday.
So what I'm hearing is Magic 8 Ball might be the future.
Yeah. People, please start watching us so we can get a sub button and I can quit this damn dirty job.
Right. And it doesn't mean dirty job like the Discovery Channel show.
Right.
Unfortunately, because that one actually went well.
I would take it at this point, though.
Right.
But yeah, no, I actually had a pretty serious conversation with the wife about what jobs look like going forward, and if this is something I want to continue doing.
Good.
You know.
How'd that work out? Tell us.
Well, it hasn't, because I'm obviously still working for the same freaking job. Here comes the deep conversation, and you and I have had this conversation offline, and I think there are a lot of people that can probably relate to either one of our positions here. Mm-hmm. You have had plenty of opportunities to take risks, mm-hmm. and you've done so with that, right? Mm-hmm. And it's worked out very well for you. You know, you've had some scares, you know, especially like last year, like where's income going to come from? Mm-hmm. But you have a mindset where you take those risks. You've got your fingers in about 5 different pies at the moment, waiting for one of them to take off, right? And a lot of that has to, you know, you were given that opportunity.
Well, it's not even about opportunity. In many cases, you know, I come from the entertainment industry. Mm-hmm. It wasn't an opportunity. It was if you have only one thing going,
right,
you're screwed.
Yeah.
And, you know, for the longest time, it was just me. You know, I've only known my wife and you guys for almost 6 years at this point.
Yep.
And, you know, but it's different that you've been with your job at the moment for over 16 years.
It'll be 17 just after your daughter's birthday.
Yep. So...
But
it's been a whole different life setup and life condition.
And I got this job on, it was, you know, son of a stonecutter. Mm-hmm. You know, I was working, before that, I was working 2 jobs and still living paychecks to paychecks. Mm-hmm. So this was, you know, getting this job was a blessing, and it kind of jump-started my ability to go and get married and buy my first condo and, right? So I am very not risk-averse.
Right. But you're very risk averse.
Yeah, very risk averse. There you go. Because at one point in time, my address was my license plate, and I don't ever want to go back there.
Right.
So, just had a conversation with another friend of mine that, and it sparked a little bit of a debate amongst other friends of ours that, you know, had a job opportunity, has been, you know, going through the COVID thing, and he lost his job. Has been isolating at home, and it's really affecting his mental health. The one thing that was been, you know, the shining spot was going out and getting a new job. And that's what we've been hearing about is, I want to get a new job. I want to get a new job. And then the other day comes in and goes, I actually turned a job down because it wasn't 100% a fit for me. And some people were just like, wait a minute, you've just been telling us how you wanted to get a job, and you turned one down. And I actually kind of respect that. Because I've made the decision to work a job, you know, the get-by job. And that get-by job cut off opportunities for me.
Yeah. No, and I've been there also. Like,
you know, the only difference is if you pass up that get-by job and then turn around and complain that, you know, oh, I'm still starving and woe is me, then, okay, you passed up a get-by job.
Right. Well, I mean, in a lot of cases, change for the sake of change. You know, some people will rip the Band-Aid off and jump in full force just to, you know, see things different from another side.
Right.
You know, when other people, you know, you look at what's involved with that. And especially now, you know, I remember, you know, we were talking about to our mother-in-law a couple days ago, and the conversation was, you know, back in the day, someone could have the same company, same job for 45 years, and they treated you like family. They made sure you were taken care of, your family was taken care of, everything there.
The idea of a pension?
Right. Now, you know, in the entertainment industry, I know some people that'll have 6 jobs in a single year, and that's a standard practice because it's, contract to contract. No one wants to embed and take care of the larger picture, see what's involved.
Right.
And with the way a lot of companies are going, not to get political, but Prop 22 basically gave people more reason to, out here in California, to, not have that kind of seated connection to a company, and to, some sort of economically driven family. And so we're seeing a lot of change and pushback to that as people realize, that there needs to be more. So we're seeing different communities forming. We're seeing all those sorts of things. Hell, if we could, I know our families would just live in a commune.
Right.
We'd have our one drinking room somewhere out in a shack in the middle of the woods, and everyone else could live together. But that's because the nuclear family is that much more important to us.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, this is with our mother-in-law. That's right. We're both in-laws.
She's my mother-in-law too.
Yeah. His name is my name. Came up in an era where you could survive off a single income.
Right.
So, again, this is a luxury. Neither one, like you and I, do not have that anymore, and that's changed the dynamic of families as well.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, are there still some places that people could live on a single income?
Probably gonna have to bring your mic up.
Yeah. Are there still places where people could live on a single income? Yeah.
Sure.
That's just not here. And, the single income also varies. What I would be making now is not what I would be making in a place where you could afford to live off of that single income.
Sure. Another thing this year has kind of proven, though, is that, you don't have to be living in Seattle. You don't have to be living in San Jose to do those tech jobs that pay well.
And I think that's one of the huge transitions nowadays is because of COVID. We saw already, this is me putting on my economic soapbox. But before COVID, people were moving online for a lot of things. Like retail stores are suffering.
Right.
Malls have been going downhill, and a lot of that's because why would I bother going out of the house when I can get exactly what I want delivered to me the next day?
Well, at this point, the brick and mortar has become a viewing room.
Yeah.
So certain industries, like the video game industry, there's no point for a storefront anymore.
Right.
But stuff like furniture stores, people go in and they sit on that couch and they go, okay, this is really comfy. They immediately scurry back home and try to find that same couch online for a bargain.
Right. And so a lot of those things were already happening. We're already starting to see the decline. What we saw now with the COVID situation is...
The COVID.
It's the COVID situation.
Yeah, I know.
That's our next show, by the way. It's going to, star a mildly depressed
it's the
COVID virus.
countdown. Yeah.
DMCA. But yeah. What we ended up seeing now is that people are realizing the most flexible workspace is to just let people do their thing.
Right.
In a lot of cases, this is partly the American inability to, create boundaries effectively, which is a whole nother story and a whole nother episode.
Or just to release control over having your thumb on an employee all day, and then that.
Well, that's why most people still work in a in-office environment. Is the person needed to be able to stand over you, whatever, but. Because that's the way things were for the longest time. You as a manager were able to show value and importance by standing over everyone and driving the whip in a lot of cases. But now, because of COVID, people are forced to work remotely. But a lot of workers are putting in, just look at teachers for example. People are giving teachers a lot of crap for the education right now, but they're working 2 to 3 times what they were working beforehand, just to be able to keep up. And provide the best environment possible. Mm-hmm.
And not only are they dealing with, like in our case, their own crappy internet service. They're dealing with your crappy internet service and your inability to provide technology for your kids. And it's not a knock on you. But that's what it is. But they have to deal with that. It's like, okay, I need to be able to give your kid a document so they can do their homework. You don't have access to Microsoft Office.
Right.
So now I've got to, not only do I have to format this where it's the most compatible, because, half the people are logging in Chromebooks, and other good majority of them are logging in with, iPhones and iPads and, Emacs, iMacs, and then the rest of them are logging in on Windows machines. It's Emacs, I know. Grandpa.
Yeah. Where's your walker? Meanwhile, I'm the one standing because my back's hurting. So.
Right. The hypocrisy in the system here. But yeah, it's so. And all of this, in our case, all of this is being pushed out over a 10 meg up bandwidth, onto crappy school firewalls and whatnot that are trying to limit what you can. There's some protection involved here. We've abandoned the school provided equipment because it just failed.
Right. Well, and I mean, the school provided equipment was already weak to begin with, but it was meant for being centralized in one place that they could control it. As soon as you decentralize it, now you're cloud based.
Yeah.
And that's
here's the big funny. So because they went cloud-based and they realized all the risks involved, they went, oh, okay, let's go upgrade our firewall and our VPN. So they went and upgraded it. And then it turns out that firewall and upgrade were not compatible with the old generation of Mac OS that
most of the systems are using. Yeah.
That most of the systems are using. So then they pushed a Mac OS update to all of those systems and crashed 90% of them.
Yes, that's about right.
And there's no way you can roll it back, but then you roll back, you can't use the firewall. You roll forward, you can't use the computer.
Yeah.
So that's what we dealt with this week.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right.
Right, and here I am stuck in the middle with no internet.
Right. Thank you. We'll be performing many of these hits. Highway to the Wi-Fi Zone is next on the album.
Drop it like a tot spot.
Yeah. Don't forget, we've got the Mag Park IT guy with us. So, for an extra $25 more, he'll make the IT visit worth your while.
Bow chicka bow wow.
I mean, there's a waiver. I'm just saying.
But yeah, risk averse, right? That's what
kicked off this rabbit hole tangent.
That stability that I have, I'm finally starting to see the disincentive and the I don't know, I shackled myself by doing this. And couple that with the abysmal failure that turned out to be both of our previous employment, and a lot of that has to do again with the pandemic and them that just not being.
They had issues.
They had issues already, so yeah, there was no way they were going to be resilient to the pandemic. Really, just makes me dig my heels in and go, screw it, it's a paycheck, and it's not a bad paycheck. Right. It's not a bad paycheck.
Right, but also, I mean, a year ago, how many people?
I'm literally walking into a death trap every day, and I'm not just talking COVID, right? That's just a new added fuck up to the whole situation. I work in aerospace, and the reason I get paid what I get paid, because the work I do is very simple. I get paid because at any given point in time on any given day, I could get blown to itty-bitty bits by some bad manufactured part. Because my job is to make sure that they don't do they don't do that on an airplane where it could kill 150 people. So I get to stand in front of it every day, and part after part after part after part.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, back when I was looking for a new job and what it could be after the last one crashed and was figuring things out. I'm lucky I found the job I did, but part of the bonus for me was the fact that I kind of worked my own schedule because I work from home with it. And there's pros and cons to that, but I'm actually there for the family. Now, what does that mean for you or your situation has been? You've been waking up at 4 a.m., coming home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and passing out because you're exhausted. And you get to unfortunately have to miss out on part of that.
A ton of it.
That's the family. That's the standard operating procedure for most families these days.
Yep.
How do we get out of that?
And the good question is, we now live in an era where you have to have the accreditations. You have to have the letters behind your name to even get a good sniff at stuff.
Right.
And here I am. Stuck
in the middle. Yeah.
Stuck in a. I have 17 years of job experience in an aerospace industry. I have carry the one. 22 years plus experience in system building and IT administration.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have boots on the ground experience. That doesn't mean shit when I walk into an interview, because I don't have the Cisco certs. I actually, my A+ I think just expired. I have to renew that. But yeah, I don't have these certifications under my belt. But I've actually walked up and touched the equipment, which a lot of people that have these certifications haven't.
Right. Well, no, it's like my mom is in a similar situation. She, she has been the caregiver for my grandparents, but hasn't technically worked a full-time standard job in decades.
And it's that old adage that, you pull your hair out because you need credit to get credit. I can't get a credit card because I don't have any credit. Well, How do I get credit without a credit card? That's exactly where we're at now.
Right. It's funny. A lot of the work I'm doing right now is cleaning up what quote-unquote people have done with a lot of what my job is right now is people who had been, impeccable training, incredibly smart, but had never actually lived through a startup environment. And so they had created such a complicated system for managing and tracking work that it's incredible the amount of detail they put into it and the thought process.
But it was a brick-and-mortar ideology.
Well, it wasn't even a brick-and-mortar ideology. It was a system that required more effort to maintain than it did to actually do the work in the first place.
Right.
And so, a lot of times I end up questioning that is, these are tools. They're not answers. They're not solutions. They're supposed to be there to help the process. And, what a lot of people now, end up doing is getting a piece of paper that says that they've learned but don't know how to think.
Right.
And,
Well, and the problem I have with that is, again, I come from an era where you value experience over education. Because, again, hands-on experience.
Well, I think we're seeing a lot of that shift now. I think,
and mind you, again, Grandpa here, where's my walker? I came from a time where a lot of stuff that, I wasn't born into the service industry, which is where a lot of things have shifted. So.
Well, but I'd also take it a step, further. It's people's ability to adapt. Our country, our educational system, everything was designed to be able to be that cog in a machine for these corporations that would last for decades at a time.
Right.
But think about our current lifestyle, between your 4-year-old and my 1-year-old.
There's that scream.
There it is. There's that high-level pitch. Between the 4-year-old and the 1-year-old, there is such a drastic shift in what society has provided to them that, in any other time in history, they would have been the same generation. Now they are completely different. The world, the society, their understanding of their place and how they have to adapt are so different.
We were just telling the audience, there's that scream, as my wife comes out and just goes, By the way, those keys that you found were the keys I used to get home and back. So I had already...
Also, you're wearing my shirt.
I stole it from you permanently.
No, you stole it from me permanently, yes. Yeah, no, the Nate Foo's family, apparently all of them, will steal my shirts or Mama Bear's shirts and wear them constantly. So at this point, I don't actually have clothing of my own. I'm just going to take all the pure black shirts and claim them as mine, and that might be the best I get.
No, my wife loves her pure black shirts. Remember, she was the goth girl growing up.
Right. Speaking of stuff like that, I just got an email that Destiny, that Bungie is sending me my Prophecy Dungeon trial or 9 Players in the 9 or whatever they're called hoodie. So
nice. I didn't bother.
I didn't either. It just told me it was sending it to me. So I'm like, all right, sure.
Did one of the Beardos gift you one?
No. I mean, I've run the Prophecy Dungeon, but I don't know how I'm getting a shirt. or hoodie or whatever it is. I probably spent money at some point. Most likely I was drunk. I mean,
that could
that's
be,
the very rare occasion that I
and
actually
with
get
the
to
way
spend money on
with the way
myself.
Bungie ships, it could have been months ago.
Yeah.
That's one. If I have a gripe about Bungie and their shipping, it's like, oh, hey, you ordered something back in February. We confirmed that order in June. We shipped it in September.
Again, the only time I get stuff for myself nowadays is when I am drunk. So let's see what I end up buying after this episode. Stay tuned for an after episode to see what Shitty Data buys.
Tune into our other podcast, #Shit We Bought When Drunk.
Which reminds me, because of my back and being, all screwed up, I'm finally getting myself a decent chair. I'm buying one of those Secret Labs.
Nice. Which one?
Well, the one that fits me is the Omega.
Yeah, the Omegas or the Titans will fit you. The problem is the Titans.
Well, I'm short.
Yeah.
So like the Omega is perfectly my size. So I'm getting the Omega. I ended up I think I chose the ash color, not necessarily because I care one way or another of the colors, but that was one that from the pre-orders, would ship in January rather than April.
Right, about $410.
With tax and shipping, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's after the discounts for the New Year and holidays and things like that. But
No,
honestly, if it lasts for 2
day.
years, if it lasts for 2 years, it's worth more than the chair I've got right now.
Yeah.
And if it actually helps my back, so be it. Like right now, the bad part about my job now is that I spend so much time in front of the computer, and then all these other projects are sitting in front of a computer that I'm in front of a computer for 8 to 10 hours a day minimum.
When are you getting your gunners?
Right. Well, I actually borrowed your wife's gunners, and those helped significantly. So I actually have
#product review.
Right. # not a sponsorship,
Right.
but could be. Those helped significantly with eye strain and headaches.
Yeah.
But I have a eye doctor's appointment, the first one in 3 years, at the end of the month. And so depending on how that goes, I'll probably end up buying either gunners through them.
Right.
Because they have the ability of, using the gunners frames and lenses and putting a prescription on them.
Right.
Or just getting a pair off the internet, depending on how bad my eyes are. Yeah. But at this point, I'm almost tempted to also just get an upgraded monitor that has there's several of them now that have the eye strain relief built into them.
Right.
And it's like, I'm colorblind anyway, so, the reduced blue doesn't do anything for me.
Well, you don't think so, but
Right.
it really does.
It won't change the perspective of what I'm seeing in most cases. It's still not the way it's intended. So, yeah. That's what I got. How are we doing on time?
Got a ton. It can be put out onto other. We can stretch it out and see how everything goes. We have, and again, not politics, but we have the inauguration coming up here in what is today, in 10 days.
Yep.
And
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah,
I mean,
who knows what the heck is going to happen there? And
talking about how all this impacts us as dads. The way we do work, the way we interact with people, and the way we raise our kids is definitely going to be affected by what's going on, what's happened the last 4 years, and what's going to go on in the future.
Sure. And again, you and I are both in industries that are, well, my industry is especially government, military spending is a huge part of aerospace industry. And then with everything with the taxes coming up, going from a conservative to a liberal, from a Republican to Democratic, right? Tax
the
rate
way
thing.
the new tax plan from this past administration has done is screwed over so much for us.
And I mean, and again, it all depends on who you are. If you're middle class America, this tax break was great. If you're self-employed, it wasn't so great. If you were lower middle class, it wasn't so great. If you're
in any state that's a bit expensive to live in, you're screwed.
You were screwed. We lost a lot. We had less taken out of our paychecks, but we lost a lot of tax credits that we got for having kids or having home offices.
Which was done before COVID really was anything. So that was a very unfortunate situation because technically anyone could have claimed the work from home tax credit.
Right.
At this point. which you can't do anymore.
Well, and again, that was,
By the way, we are not accountants. We are not CFAs. Please
Right.
consult with your own financial planner and financial advisor before taking our word on anything. Hashtag, CYA, hashtag,
full disclosure.
full disclosure.
Right. But I mean, therein lies part of the problem, because so many people abused things that were legitimate write-offs. Those things got taken away.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was standardized to quote-unquote try to simplify things, but it was also set to penalize, and I don't want to make this political,
Right.
but a lot of it was set to penalize key areas that did not support the current administration.
Right.
And to give tax breaks for a lot of areas. I mean, hell, I started my own S-Corp for a lot of the work I'm doing.
Right.
And the side projects and things like that. And right now, you can write off all meal expenses for 2 years as a corporation. You don't think every time we get together and talk about this podcast, I'm writing off everything we're doing?
Right. Is that a wholly abuse of the system?
That's what was written into the code.
Right.
Let's take advantage of it.
Exactly. But that's kind of part of the problem, is because those things were written into it. And sure, we're exercising our right to, exploit a loophole. Mm-hmm. We're doing it to the tune of what, $50?
Yeah. Well, and I think that conversation comes down to also, there's people that have blatantly played the system.
Right.
And
those loopholes
that
were
have
written.
taken the time
those
to
loopholes
learn
were
what the
written
system
for these
is.
giant galas to go, we're going to charge you $125 a plate, and then we're going to write it off.
Right. Well, and that's what it came down to. But the people that benefit the most from it are the people that also have their Cayman Islands accounts.
Right.
Out here in California, because of a lot of law changes that happened, for me to be able to be an independent contractor and work on a lot of projects, I had to start my own company, my own, LLC or S-Corp or whatever, and go from there. But, again, a lot of this comes down to where things are. I again did, this goes back to the risk conversation. I made the choice to start a company corporation because that gave me more ability to jump onto other projects and other activities that were going on with less boundaries.
Sure.
Than if I was strictly W-2 and had to have certain obligations with it.
Yeah.
And, I don't call that necessarily gaming the system. That is understanding what the system is set up for and how you can utilize it for your advantage.
Right.
Gaming the system is falsifying documents.
Right.
Gaming the system is putting money in other activities and then calling them write-offs.
Well, yeah, gaming the system would be, sure. So you and I are having a conversation involved on our business dealings with the whiskey brand, with the Debuff Dad brand.
Whiskey with Chewies.
Right, right. Us legitimately going and having a conversation with that, and then turning around and going, okay, so cool, this was a meeting, we're writing this off. To going, well, because you and I are both always talking about this, our trip to McDonald's for the next, we just went on a social visit, writing that off as well.
Well, I mean, it goes even further than that. Like, there's legitimately people that are writing off expenses as nonprofits,
right,
or, donations or things like that when they are not. They're, giving money to family members or things like that. Again, not being political, I don't want to go into anything that was necessarily found with Trump's family finances and what's going on there.
Sure.
But
and again, sure, that's a low-hanging fruit. There are a lot of charities that are profiting.
Mm-hmm. Looking at something like Guardians Mental Health, which we're both very heavily involved in for different reasons and different purposes and different values. You're the mod father, and I've been looking at it from how do we get additional charitable donations and contributions and things like that. Mm-hmm. And the amount of regulation that has now been added to that process for a lot of public grants is because a lot of the big companies that could afford grant writers were in turn taking advantage of those grants to line the pockets of people.
Yep.
And that's very common, and that's where a lot of this is, that's kind of been the whole situation with America. But we're seeing crackdowns on that. California is pushing pushed the higher minimum wage, pushed for a lot of changes in this whole system. But a lot of that is to make sure that California gets their rightful share of tax revenue, not necessarily to look out for an individual or to, hold other people accountable. The U.S. government has the IRS, its job it is to look out for a lot of that. But, they're an antiquated system with how they process a lot of things now, because they're still doing things in a lot of ways they were doing it back in 20, 30 years ago compared to the internet now.
Yeah.
But, on the flip side, Al Capone was caught because of tax issues, not because of anything else that he necessarily did. And so therefore, I would honestly say that might be the strongest aspect of our regulatory systems.
Right.
It's just it's been purposely made complicated so that it benefits people that can afford to hire people to, figure out how to make it work, compared to, the Does and the Smiths living next door. Yeah. We sound fabulous.
We sound amazing for having no video.
Right. And this is why the next purchase will be an upgraded router with extended 5G radius and
or some sort
probably
of
some sort of
mesh network. Yeah.
All right. Well, we are currently at an hour 7. Shall we wrap it up?
Yeah. Well, I'll edit it down to probably
40 minutes.
46 minutes. Yeah, with a couple of interruptions.
So,
But,
cue the exit music. Nate Fu, where can people find you?
ow. Something just flew into my freaking eye.
So don't cue the music quite yet.
So yeah, that'll do it for today. Happy New Year to everyone, and we're going to try to make this more consistent. Until then, if you have any questions, comments, whatnot, you can find myself at on Twitter at GG N8FOO. You can, if I ever decide to hit the go live, you can find me streaming on Twitch at NateFoo, N8FOO. You can find everything about us at debuffdad.com
/whiskey. That's WHISKEE. IEE. I'm drunk. WHISKIEE.
There we go.
And I'm True Data 2020, everywhere that media is sold or consumed.
And if you're listening to this live, you already have that, True Data 2020, because we're at twitch.tv/TrueData2020. We need to work on that, by the way.
We do. Which what?
Getting the podcast its own channel.
Yeah.
Once we get a few more viewers or listeners or whatnot. And speaking of which, if you like what you're hearing and want to hear more of it, or even if you don't like what you're hearing and don't want to hear more of it, please go give us, a review on whatever your podcast streaming service of choice is. iTunes, Spotify, Podbean. We're on all of those things.
The more we can connect with other people, the better the content, and maybe, we'll actually be able to afford to have our video up the entire time. So,
until then,
episode 18 of the Whiskey Podcast, I'm True Data.
I am Nate Fu.
And, peace.
Have a good night, evening, afternoon. We're out.